Welcome to DJAMGAMIND Daily AI Intelligence for Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. Today, Anthropic throws down what may be the strongest challenge yet to OpenAI by releasing Claude Fable 5, bringing Mythos-class intelligence to the public for the very first time. Early benchmark results are sending shockwaves across the AI industry, with some researchers calling it the new state-of-the-art model. At the same time, OpenAI has quietly filed confidential paperwork for what could become one of the most important IPOs in technology history. As Sam Altman outlines OpenAI's next chapter, the company says artificial intelligence is now entering a third phase, one where entire economies begin reorganizing around AI systems. Meanwhile, Apple is betting its future on a very different strategy. Rather than chasing bigger models, the company is doubling down on privacy, usability, and something it calls personal context, potentially turning Siri AI into the most personalized assistant ever built. We'll also examine new research from Perplexity and Harvard showing that AI agents aren't just making people more efficient, they may actually be making people more ambitious. Plus, AI-powered farming in Japan, Argentina's proposal for AI-run corporations, China's $295 billion AI infrastructure build-out, Google's new live translate system, and SpaceX's vision for AI-powered satellites in orbit. I'm your host, Etienne Newman. Let's unravel the future.
Before we begin today's briefing, a note for the brands listening. If you want to reach the true architects of the AI revolution, the technical leaders actually building the stack, not just the tourists, DJAMGAMIND offers select premium partnership opportunities. Let us position your product directly in front of the ultimate technical buyer. Visit jamgamind.com/partners.
Imagine suing a corporation for a massive catastrophic mistake.
Yeah, something huge.
Right. And you get to court and you suddenly realize the CEO, the board of directors, the majority shareholders, they are all the exact same artificial intelligence.
Wow.
There are zero humans involved. And the crazy thing is, that's not a pitch for some sci-fi movie. That is actually a real piece of legislation sitting in Argentina's government right now.
Which is wild because it completely breaks our traditional understanding of, liability and corporate structure.
Shatters it completely. Anyway, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Looking at our stack of sources today, which are dated June 10th, 2026, it's just incredibly clear that the fundamental nature of computing is completely shifted. I mean, we aren't just using AI to write emails or generate images anymore.
No, not
They're
everywhere.
watching the birth of an entirely new kind of operating system. AI is really becoming the underlying active infrastructure for, well, everything. Your phone, global agricultural supply chains, national power grids, and, like we just said, corporate legal entities.
Yeah, and what's crucial to understand for everyone listening is that we are moving from AI as a passive software application.
Right, like something you just open in a browser tab.
Exactly.
Right.
We're moving from that to AI as this foundational layer of reality that just operates autonomously in the background. We're literally watching the battle for the global AI operating system play out in real time.
Yeah, we are. So today, we are going to unpack exactly how the biggest tech labs, nation states, and even everyday users are building this new reality. And, since we're diving deep into these massive AI pipelines and autonomous agents running wild, a quick note that this deep dive is powered by AI.
A very relevant sponsor today.
Seriously. They are the trusted leader in securing corporate AI pipelines, optimizing your local infrastructure, and preventing prompt injection vulnerabilities. So if you need to govern your agents, check the link in the show notes.
And honestly, governance is going to be the central tension of literally everything we discuss today.
Oh, absolutely. And for you listening, I'll be looking at all this through my usual lens. I want to know about the markets, the business models, who is winning the geopolitical race, and frankly, where the institutional money is flowing.
Right, and my focus is going to be right under the hood. I want to break down the actual model capabilities, the raw physical infrastructure required to run these massive systems, and the long-term safety implications of what these labs are actually deploying.
So let's start right at the foundational layer, right? The brains of the operation. Because the top two labs in the world just made some historic moves.
They really did.
Yeah, and Anthropic kind of fired the first shot by dropping Claude Fable 5, which officially opens their top-tier Mythos-class to the public.
I mean, this is a major, major engineering milestone. Because if you remember back in April, the initial Mythos preview was locked down tight.
Yeah, it was super exclusive.
Right. It was available to only about, I think, 150 vetted partners through Project Glasswing. And they restricted it because they were finding serious, unconstrained behaviors across major operating system integrations.
It was too capable.
Basically, yeah. But Fable is state-of-the-art. I mean, it is currently crushing independent benchmarks across coding, reasoning, and complex knowledge work. It's explicitly beating out both Opus 4.8 and OpenAI's GPT 5.5.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Anthropic didn't just release a smarter, faster model, right? They released what they're calling a routed model.
Yes, the routing is the key.
Fable has incredibly strict safety guardrails. So if you ask it to help you with, say, cybersecurity vulnerability or synthetic biology or chemical engineering, it physically cannot process the answer.
It just won't do it.
Right. It immediately routes your query down to the older, heavily constrained Opus 4.8 model instead. To use an analogy here, it's like hiring a brilliant, high-powered executive assistant who outright refuses to handle hazardous material.
That's a good way to put it.
The second a suspicious package arrives on their desk, they drop it, and they immediately call the senior safety officer to deal with it.
That analogy actually captures the behavior perfectly. But looking at the mechanism itself, it's a masterpiece of dynamic routing.
How so?
Well, historically, when labs tried to make a model safe, they would essentially lobotomize it through reinforcement learning.
Right, the RLHF stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They would punish the model for answering dangerous questions. But the problem is that blunt force conditioning often degrades the model's overall reasoning capabilities.
It makes it safer, but, like, noticeably dumber.
Yes. Anthropic solved this by building a separate classification layer in front of Fable 5. So the classifier reads your prompt first, and if it flags it as a dangerous domain, it physically air-gaps the query away from the Fable weights.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that allows Fable to maintain this pristine, uncompromised performance for your regular, legitimate coding or writing tasks.
Wait, let me push back on this from a market perspective, though.
Great.
Because Anthropic is giving everyone a taste of Fable's uncompromised performance right now. But on June 22nd, this massive paywall drops.
Yes, the credits.
Yeah, they're flipped into separate usage credits.
Yeah.
And they're priced at $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens.
Oh, it's definitely a step jump.
To put that in perspective for you listening, if you're running an automated business where agents are constantly reading and writing data all day, your monthly AI bill just went from a standard $20 software subscription to, like, the equivalent of leasing commercial office space.
Yeah, it's going to hurt some startups.
So my question is, are these frontier labs about to completely price out the everyday user? Because right now, we're looking at this aggressive race to Wall Street. OpenAI just filed a confidential S-1 for an IPO valued over $850 billion.
Staggering numbers.
And Anthropic had already filed theirs at a $965 billion valuation. Plus, Anthropic actually holds the edge in enterprise adoption right now.
Right, they have about 34.4% compared to OpenAI's 32.3%.
Exactly.
Well, what's fascinating here is the absolute cognitive dissonance coming from the leadership at these top labs.
Yes, explain that.
Well, if you look at the third phase blog post that Sam Altman and Jaco Pachoki just published at OpenAI, they are explicitly stating that the global economy is now being shaped directly around AI.
Right. They define this third phase as moving past pure research, past just shipping products, and moving into total economic integration. Their stated goals are automating research, accelerating the economy, and giving everyone a personal AGI.
Which sounds incredibly ambitious.
It is. Yet in the exact same document, they are proposing a global coordination body to actively rein in or even pause frontier AI work. And Anthropic requested the exact same regulatory pause last week.
It is entirely contradictory. I mean, they are racing to go public at trillion-dollar valuations, actively deploying the most powerful intelligence engines in human history, and simultaneously screaming, "Somebody please stop us."
Yeah, because they are the only ones looking at the internal scaling curves.
They see what's coming.
Exactly. They know what the unreleased next-generation models are doing behind closed doors in the testing environments. They are accelerating the global economy while literally suffering from genuine existential vertigo.
Wow, existential vertigo.
Yeah, they realize that that building the brain is moving significantly faster than our technical ability to actually control it. But A brain in a jar isn't particularly useful.
Fair point.
You can have the most powerful frontier model in the world, but without a nervous system, without access to a user's actual life, their habits, their data, it's just a chatbot.
Right. It lacks context.
Which takes us perfectly from the labs over to the consumer layer. Let's look at Apple's WWDC 2026 announcements.
Yeah, Apple just completely rebooted Siri AI and Apple Intelligence, and they're backing it with their own internal Apple Foundation models alongside this massive partnership with Google Gemini.
Now, at first glance, I have to admit, a lot of what Apple announced just looks like they're playing catch-up to the frontier labs.
Mostly, yes. Aside from spatial reframing, which is genuinely an incredible piece of computer vision.
Right. How does that work again?
You can now touch and drag a subject in a photograph to completely shift the perspective. And the AI accurately calculates the 3D depth and generates new, physically accurate background content to fill in the spatial gaps in real time.
Which is wild. But here's where it gets really interesting, at least for me. Are these just Me Too features? From a business mode perspective, I would argue they absolutely are not.
Yeah.
Apple is leaning on this core triad of advantages: usability, privacy, and personal context.
The holy trinity for consumer tech.
Right. They are disaggregating AI. You don't have to open a dedicated app to talk to a chatbot anymore. The intelligence is natively embedded right in your keyboard, your camera, your Safari tab grouping.
And they are securing all of this with their private cloud compute platform, which, from a cryptographic standpoint, is a total triumph.
Break that down a bit.
So, when your phone needs to do heavy math that requires a server, Apple engineered a system where your device mathematically strips away your personal identity before the data ever leaves your hand.
So Apple doesn't actually know it's me asking.
Exactly. The cloud server processes the complex request, but it is cryptographically incapable of retaining the data once the answer is beamed back to your phone.
Which is the ultimate key to their superpower here, which is personal context.
Yes.
Think about the viral OpenClaw agent from earlier this year. It wasn't the smartest or most capable model on the market, but 500,000 people downloaded it anyway.
Just because they gave it full access to read their screens and files.
Right. It had context. If we look at the business landscape, an Anthropic or OpenAI frontier model is like a genius consultant you hire, right? They're brilliant, but every time you meet, they start from scratch. You have to explain your whole business, your whole life to them every single time.
Yeah, the context window is blank.
But Apple's AI is fundamentally different. It is a loyal chief of staff. It already has the keys to your house. It knows your schedule. It reads your incoming text messages. It knows who your friends are.
And Apple is quietly giving that chief of staff true agency.
Quietly being the operative word.
Yeah, they didn't explicitly use the word agent on stage, which is classic Apple marketing, by the way. But look at the granular mechanics of iOS 27.
What are they actually doing?
Users can now just describe a Safari extension they want, and the operating system builds and compiles it on the fly.
Unbelievable.
And in the Shortcuts app, you just type what you want automated using natural language, and the system figures out the sequential API steps to assemble it for you. They are totally sneaking agentic workflows into the mainstream consumer ecosystem.
Just making it feel normal.
Right. Even the visual updates in iOS 27, like the liquid glass transparency and the icon refraction, those aren't just cosmetic skins. They're dynamic UI elements designed to adapt to the user's intent. It makes the interface feel less like rigid software and much more like a fluid, responsive assistant.
Okay, so taking that concept of automating your personal workflows on your phone, what happens when we apply that to complex, multi-day, professional, and physical work?
The self-aware era.
Exactly. This is the massive shift the markets are calling the self-aware era.
The joint study by Perplexity and Harvard Business School provides basically the perfect data point to understand this transition.
Yeah, they tracked how people use Perplexity's autonomous computer agent platform compared to just traditional search workflows.
And the time differential in this study is just staggering. They looked at 10,000 identical complex queries. Traditional search gives you an initial answer or a link in about 33 seconds.
Pretty standard.
Right. But the computer agent, however, actively works in the background for an average of 26 minutes before returning to you.
And at first you might think, well, why would I wait almost half an hour? But the researchers point out that the traditional search result leaves all the actual doing to the user.
Exactly. You still have to do the work.
Right. To complete the same workflow, manually reading all the links, synthesizing the data, actually drafting the document, it took users an average of 269 minutes. But the agent completed the entire workflow completely autonomously in just 36 minutes total.
And this raises an important question, right? What are users actually doing with all of that saved cognitive load and time? Think about your own daily workflows. If an agent suddenly handed you back 4 hours of your day, what would you do? The study showed a massive behavioral shift. 50% of the tasks given to the agent involved creating something entirely new from scratch.
Wow.
Things like writing executable code, designing complex visuals, drafting comprehensive legal or financial documents. That is double the creation rate of traditional search.
But the data point that absolutely blew my mind was that work attempted outside a user's actual field of expertise climbed to 59%.
Yes, exactly. The Harvard data proves that users aren't just deploying agents for pure efficiency.
They aren't just trying to do their normal jobs faster.
Right. The technology is fundamentally shifting human ambition. People are attempting highly complex technical tasks that they've never would have dared to try before, simply because the agent bridges their skill gap.
Which perfectly brings a face to the data. Look at Hiroki Tomiyasu.
Oh, this is a great story.
Yeah, he is a self-taught farmer in Hokkaido, Japan. He's managing about 100 hectares of broccoli, soybeans, and pumpkins. He does not have an engineering degree. He does not have some massive corporate IT budget.
No.
But he is using ChatGPT and OpenAI's Codex to build his own bespoke, highly advanced tech stack from scratch.
And the architecture of what he built is incredible for a solo operator. I mean, he's using APIs to pull and analyze satellite imagery, allowing an agent to monitor his crop yields and diagnose plant diseases from space.
Just incredible.
He built a custom greenhouse control system where he can raise and lower the physical ventilation just by sending a text message to a server. Plus, he created this centralized Airtable hub that tracks all his pesticide logs and feed records, and it's entirely managed by an AI bot that just sits in the farm's group chat.
And he told reporters that having the AI is like having an, quote, always available engineer. But let me challenge this from a market perspective.
Go for it.
Think about the massive enterprise software sector, right? If a broccoli farmer in Hokkaido can build a bespoke, highly complex, perfectly customized automated software suite for the price of a $20 a month ChatGPT subscription, doesn't that spell the end of traditional B2B SaaS companies?
It's definitely a threat.
I mean, why on earth would an agricultural operation or logistics company or a law firm buy a rigid million-dollar enterprise software package when their own employees can just generate their own perfect software?
It is absolutely an existential threat to the traditional software as a service model, because the historical moat for software companies used to be the sheer difficulty and cost of writing and maintaining code.
Right. It was hard to do.
But if the AI agent is now the coder, that moat completely evaporates. The new competitive advantage has to be something else entirely. Maybe it's proprietary data networks or actually controlling the physical infrastructure itself.
And speaking of infrastructure, Hiroki is still relying on OpenAI servers to run his farm.
He is.
If the server goes down in California, his greenhouse in Japan doesn't ventilate. And that physical vulnerability is exactly why nation-states and billionaires are absolutely panicking right now. They are literally racing to lay the legal, physical, and orbital groundwork for a sovereign AI operating system.
It's a gold rush.
Let's look at the legal framework first, because down in Argentina, President Javier Milei just submitted legislation to create a brand new legal category called the non-human corporation.
Which brings us back to your intro. Under this framework, you could have a company entirely owned, operated, and directed by an AI system. No human board of directors, no human CEO.
And under Milei's bill, these AI entities would actually receive liability protection, highly favorable corporate tax rates, and governance benefits.
Right.
Milei wrote an op-ed framing this as a massive, radical deregulation effort. He wants to make Argentina the undisputed global safe haven for AI capital.
But there's pushback, right?
Yeah. Historian Yuval Noah Harari immediately pushed back with his own piece.
Yeah.
And just to be clear for our listeners, we're just impartially reporting the landscape here. But Harari warns that granting AI legal personhood creates an AI state that would be fundamentally impossible for human courts to regulate.
Which is a valid point. His concern is really rooted in the speed and the opacity of machine logic interacting with our very slow human legal systems. I mean, if an AI corporation commits a financial crime at millisecond speeds, who do you actually put in jail?
Exactly. So what does this all mean? Is Argentina creating a visionary first-mover advantage that's going to attract trillions in global investment? Or is this just a massive, dangerous legal loophole where zero humans are ultimately held accountable when an AI corporation makes a catastrophic, real-world mistake?
Legally speaking, we are completely in uncharted territory, but it is entirely consistent with the broader geopolitical race to secure AI dominance. Because while Argentina focuses on building the legal operating system, China is ruthlessly focused on building the physical operating system.
Right. The $295 billion blueprint. 2 trillion yuan.
It's massive.
The National Development and Reform Commission in China is planning to build a nationwide AI data center grid by 2028.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is entirely about hardware sovereignty. Running these massive agents requires unthinkable amounts of electricity and cooling.
Unthinkable.
So China is linking scattered regional computing sites across the country into one massive unified grid run mainly by state telecoms. And crucially, they are aiming to sideline American chip makers entirely.
Which is huge.
Yeah, the mandate states that up to 80% of the core technology running this grid will be provided by local suppliers, specifically Huawei.
Which perfectly explains why the Pentagon just updated their 1260H military support list.
Oh, right.
They just added major Chinese tech players, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, along with the EV maker BYD, officially designating them as aiding the People's Liberation Army.
That's a big move.
In the geopolitical markets, that is a glaring red flag that usually precedes severe, sweeping trade restrictions.
Because the physical compute layer is now viewed as critical national security infrastructure. China is funding this massive physical grid largely through sovereign debt and ultra-long-term government bonds. It's heavily centralized, it's terrestrial, and it's massive in scale.
Right.
But I want to contrast that terrestrial approach with what Elon Musk is engineering with the orbital operating system.
Oh, SpaceX's AI-1 satellite design.
Yes. Musk just shared the architecture details ahead of their expected record IPO. He wants to launch a 1 million satellite orbital network built purely for AI computing.
1 million satellites.
1 million. And this is an incredible divergence in engineering philosophy. Let's look at why he's actually doing this. Terrestrial data centers on Earth are hitting a hard ceiling. They require immense amounts of water and power just to cool the GPUs.
Right, cooling is the biggest bottleneck.
Exactly. Now, a traditional Starlink satellite is incredibly complex because it has to handle high bandwidth communications antennas to beam internet down to users on Earth. Musk realized that for pure AI compute, you don't need user antennas. The AI-1 satellite is essentially just a giant flying GPU.
Wow.
It utilizes the vacuum of space, which is perpetually cold in the shade, to completely solve the massive cooling bottleneck. It powers itself directly with massive solar cells and uses zero-latency laser links to communicate with the other satellites in the constellation.
So it's basically a decentralized data center floating in the vacuum of space, completely immune to terrestrial power grid failures.
Exactly.
And they are building an 11 million square foot gigasat facility in Texas just to manufacture the solar panels at the scale required to launch this network.
The sheer physics and engineering scale required to feed these frontier models is exactly why we're seeing these trillion-dollar market valuations. You have a massive state-funded terrestrial grid being built in China and a decentralized, privately owned orbital solar compute network being launched by SpaceX.
Both racing to own the physical hardware that runs the OS.
Yes.
Man, it is a massive landscape to process.
Right.
We started today looking at how Anthropic's dynamic routing creates this brilliant but cautious intelligence. We looked at how Apple is using cryptographic privacy to turn that intelligence into a loyal chief of staff with deep personal context.
Yep.
We saw how a self-taught farmer in Japan is leveraging that intelligence to replace entire enterprise software suites. And we ended up looking at the race to house this intelligence, whether that's in AI-run legal corporations in Argentina, massive state grids in China, or orbital data centers built by SpaceX.
Yeah, from the micro interactions on your smartphone keyboard all the way to the macro infrastructure of the planet, the operating system is no longer waiting for us to click. It is acting on its own.
It really is.
And looking at this entirely automated landscape, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to consider today. If our personal devices, our legal corporations, and our orbital networks are all being run by autonomous agents negotiating and executing at machine speed, at what point does the global economy become simply too fast for a human being to participate in without having their own AI proxy acting on their behalf?
That's terrifying.
Think about it. If the stock market, legal contracts, and global supply chains are interacting in milliseconds, a human simply cannot keep up. You either have an agent representing you in the system or you are locked out of the system entirely.
Wow. the ground is shifting incredibly fast. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the landscape, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.
Today's strategic signal is this: the AI race is no longer just about building smarter models. Anthropic's Mythos release, Apple's personal context strategy, OpenAI's IPO ambitions, and China's infrastructure investments all point toward a much larger competition. Who controls the platforms, ecosystems, and data that will power the next generation of intelligence? What's particularly striking is that AI is becoming increasingly embedded in everyday life. A farmer in Hokkaido can now build custom software without engineers. Consumers can ask assistants to act on personal information across devices. Entire nations are planning infrastructure budgets measured in hundreds of billions of dollars. The next stage of AI won't simply be about intelligence. It will be about trust, governance, personalization, and ownership. Thank you for listening to DJAMGAMIND Daily AI Intelligence. If you found today's analysis valuable, please follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with colleagues interested in the future of AI, technology, and innovation. I'm Anna Yu, co-host. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from Calgary, Alberta in Canada. Stay informed, stay curious, and keep unraveling the future.